But you had a nice surprise at Christmas.
I did. So my daughter showed up, my daughter from Montana, and she brought her husband with her, my son-in-law. And they brought their dog. And it was nice. I don't get to see him a whole lot. So
yeah, that's
only the second time this year that I've seen him.
Yep.
And I don't know if I even average once a year with her. How long ago did she move to Montana?
It was just over a year. It was October of the previous year.
Was it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. She was back once, wasn't she? Maybe she wasn't.
She stopped to pick me up because I rode with her to Montana in the U-Haul.
But she hadn't been back since
But she
then.
hadn't, no.
Okay. So yeah, I don't get to see her much.
Well,
I don't
good.
get to see
I'm
any of
glad.
my kids much.
I'm glad they were able to come, and you guys had some time, and that's awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But
And now you want a dog.
well,
Do you want a dog after having a dog here?
Sometimes I want a dog, sometimes I don't. I want a dog when I'm sitting at home and I'm drinking a beer and I'm watching TV.
And you want the dog to fetch the beer for you.
Yes.
Well, it's awkward when I sit on his lap and he like pets my head.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only take that so long.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So, and Marissa does not like peanut butter that much.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Anyway.
So we're back at it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna close out on Franklin. Well,
Yeah. Maybe.
probably somewhat.
Yeah.
And then, I thought maybe if that's done quick enough, we can talk about some other current events. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe we can touch up on some of the Charlie Kirk stuff. But
Sure.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Franklin.
Yes.
So we've already talked about, on the first episode, we did kind of a brief overview and kind of what the case was about and who was involved. And then the last time we sat down and we talked about Alicia Owens and kind of her court case and in her testimony and also what she discussed during the investigation during her interview. Mm-hmm. Today we're probably going to get into Paul Benassi.
Yeah.
And kind of see where it goes, because the Franklin, if once you start digging into it, and you mentioned it earlier before we started recording, that it kind of goes everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it ties into other conspiracies, theories, and it's a web.
Right. Which started off as a little embezzlement investigation.
Embezzlement.
The embezzlement of the Franklin Credit Union. That's how it started.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about a separate one.
No. And then here you go, and it ends up into this,
So Paul Benassi, would you say he was probably involved, at least allegedly, probably longer than the rest of the victims?
Yes.
Or at least the major victims.
Yes.
Because there's, of course, Jeff Hubble, there's Paul Benassi, there's Alicia Owen, there's Troy Bonner, there's James King, there's Joel Webb, there's Chris, I think it's Parker. I think so. And probably way more than that.
Oh, yeah.
But Paul was probably involved, probably the longest, mm-hmm. and was involved with possibly more things.
Yes.
So where do you want to start with Paul?
Well, we can just start with the fact that, Paul was one of the other victims that was charged with perjury in this trial.
Yeah.
And so him and Alicia Owen, those two were actually the two that were convicted of perjury.
Now, was Paul, I don't know if Paul was convicted of perjury, was he?
He was.
Was he charged? Mm-hmm. I didn't even think he was charged. I thought he made a deal.
He was. And then I'm not going to remember. He was charged with perjury, but then he ended up having a countersuit against Larry King for the abuse. And he ended up winning that.
And that came later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Paul Benassi, because you sent me a link that I watched earlier this week, and it was an interview with Paul. And the interview was actually after, I believe it was after the Alicia Owens conviction.
Yeah. It was 1991, 1993. There's a couple of different interviews. And one of them, I think, has to do with the Franklin, and the other one has to do with his lawsuit against Larry King. I think there was 2 separate interviews, if I'm not mistaken.
And Paul is, he's diagnosed with multiple personality. Mm-hmm. And I've actually never watched an interview with somebody with multiple personality. And that's not something that's like it's odd.
It's very hard to wrap your mind around. And it's almost like, oh, that's not real. That's not a real thing. I don't know. The only way I can compare it to, and of course these are movies, so this is entertainment, but what was the movie with the guy with the multiple personalities and he ended up murdering?
I was going to say
Split. What? The movie Split.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my gosh, put it on your list. The movie Split. One of the main character has multiple personality disorder. So that's a very good example. So yes, it is a movie, but in real life, it is a real thing. It's another good movie reference. Me, Myself, and Irene. Okay,
that would be a split personality.
Sure, it's been a while since I've seen that one.
Was that based on a true story?
I don't know.
I think that was I don't think so. Anyways.
Yeah. So in Paul's story, he claims that he was introduced to abuse when he was 3. And he was then his personality or his mind was broke or his mind was split around the age of 7. And that's when the different personalities started to form, according to his story.
Because he testified that he was part of a government program. Mm-hmm. And the name of that was...
it was Monarch.
Monarch.
Which was a sublet of MK Ultra.
We'll be right back.
Not only are many trying to remove us from our constitutionally limited Judeo-Christian ethos republic, more seem to be forgetting our Judeo-Christian Christitutionalist foundations. Not here at Christitutionalist, we talk about all these things. The past, the present, the future. Biblical community, Judeo-Christian ethos, the whole Bible, biblical community, not worldly communism. And there is a big difference. Join us, Christitutionalists.
So.
And I'm sure everybody's familiar with MK Ultra. It's basically experimenting.
I don't know, because Marissa, a couple episodes, she's like, "What's MK Ultra?"
And that's where they experimented with people using like LSD, different types of drugs.
Yeah.
And it involved mind control and
in other forms too. So they would do the electrolysis, where they would literally zap your brain. And then trauma is a big one. They found that if they expose the kids to trauma, that ultimately was what made them disassociate with what was happening to them. And then that would break their mind, and form multiple personalities.
And MK Ultra that was a real deal. So it's not like, that's not a conspiracy anymore.
Right.
That's something the documentation has been released, and you can research that and you can read about it yourself, I guess. But so that's kind of a real program that the government had that they used on its own citizens without their knowledge.
Yep.
And
it's a form of brainwashing, basically.
Yeah.
To brainwash and to control somebody.
And so knowing that, when you listen to Paul, when he's talking, the program that he states that he was involved in isn't such a stretch.
No.
It doesn't seem like it's all too crazy when you consider that the government has already done programs just like it.
Right. And so basically he's in his interview, this lawyer, and I feel like she was on the prosecution side.
I believe so.
And she's asking him questions in this interview, and basically says, what was this used for and who was using it. And you can see initially as Paul, he can't answer any of the questions because his personality, Paul, the normal person, couldn't recollect any of that because he wasn't.
Well, I think he could recollect some, and he would keep stating that everything that he was saying was factual, however, not complete.
Right, because certain characters couldn't access parts of the information because they were stored in other parts.
They couldn't pull it all from memory. So each personality has its own memory.
And so the main one that was answering these questions was a personality that he called Wes.
Yeah, Wesley. And at first I thought he said Wesley, but it's Wesley. Yeah. And he actually went from Paul to Mikey, and then to Wesley. What I found interesting during that interview was when he was speaking as both Paul and as Mikey, he was pretty calm. And then it was like a flip of a switch, and it went to a guy that basically came out and said, I'm kind of sick of your questions. I'm sick of you bothering Paul. And it was a completely different personality. Defensive
and protective and
and it was,
little aggressive.
Yeah. So that's the first time I've seen that. And I know some people might watch it and think, oh, it's an act. But I didn't get that.
I didn't either. When you see it in real life, it's kind of bizarre, but it's like, well, this is kind of believable.
Sure.
And this Wes character, a lot of times he would answer very robotically, as if he was, and you could tell when he was answering, he would shift his eyes up and over as if he was scrolling through a screen to get the answers. And then he would answer very robotically and very detailed. I don't know how he remembered all the details. But in listening to some of the other interviews from MK Ultra victims or survivors, they said that when their mind disassociates like that, they're left with basically just their subconscious. And it also makes their brain almost become like a photographic memory. And so they're able to recall details, unlike anybody else, basically, like a computer, because of the way their mind is now working. I don't know.
So anyways, back to Paul and what he's talking about. He talks that he was part of a program called Monarch. Allegedly, it took place or was based at an Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha. And some of the people that were involved were, it was a colonel. That was
Michael Aquino.
Aquino.
Yeah.
So, in a little background on Michael Aquino, is he?
Do we have a little background? This guy
Yeah.
has got a huge background.
He does have a huge background, and this is something that anybody else can look up as well. So he is a self-professed Satanist.
Well, first of all, Michael Aquino was a colonel in the Army,
Yes.
primarily stationed at the one in California. Starts with a P.
Presidio or
Presidio?
Presidio, something like that.
Marissa's on it. Presidio?
He
Yeah.
was also involved, I think, early on with a program with the government that had to do with psychological
psyops.
type
He was
psyops.
doing intelligence and psyop department. Yeah, he was.
And he started his own Satanist type church because he was originally like a part of the Satanist church, whatever that church name is.
Yeah, and then
And he split off and he actually started his own.
was something of Set. What was it called?
Set. It was called Set. And I thought it was, and maybe this shouldn't strike me as odd, but for whatever reason it does, that the military was aware that he had his own church in religion that had to do with Satanism. And I don't know if it's because when I think of Satanism, I think of the opposite of Christianity or any other church that worships, whether it be God or Jesus or whoever. Because typically with those churches, you think of the teachings as being good, as being kind to people. And
Right.
for whatever reason, and I'm not real familiar with people who are Satanists, don't really hang out with a bunch, but I would think that that would be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Now, what exactly the teachings are in a Satanist church, I don't know. Maybe we should go check it out sometime. Shit.
I think I'm
Maybe
good.
not,
I think
but-
I'm good.
But I did find it interesting that the military was aware, and maybe they have to be okay with it. I don't know how that works. I wasn't in the military. Maybe somebody listening can tell us. What?
Pat.
Pat? Yeah, Pat probably could.
Yes, it was Presidio of Monterey.
Presidio, yeah. Okay. I feel like some of the practices that this Michael Aquino described within the satanic religion had a lot to do with control and a certain mindset of people. And I feel like maybe some of that might have been useful in the military.
Well, probably if he's working
And so,
in
They're
some
probably
sort of
like,
a
okay.
PSYOP program with the military, I suppose.
yeah.
But so anyway, so that's not a big secret. That's not a conspiracy. That's just, that's documented.
No,
Anybody
and
can look that up.
you can search him up and all his information is there. And he was on Oprah and he was on Geraldo and he was talking about his satanic church. And
I think anybody should look
mean-
him up because you look at his picture, and his picture is creepy as shit. Because he's in a military uniform, and his eyebrows, the old mustaches where they would twist up the ends and curl them up. That's what his eyebrows were.
But the middle of his eyebrow,
Yeah,
not
it was
the
weird.
end
They were
like a mustache.
They were like horns.
well, and then the earlier pictures of him, excuse me, when he was on Oprah, that's even worse because
See, I
his
didn't
hair
see
is
that.
jet black and his hair comes to a very strong widow's peak. He looks like Eddie Munster. Do you remember Eddie Munster? He was the
yeah.
little boy. His haircut was jet black, came to a peak. It looks exactly like him. You have to look him up.
But why was he on those talk shows?
I think I don't know, but he was there to talk about his satanic church that he started up. And the fact that he look up Michael Aquino. It's Aquino.
And one of
And
the things,
Oprah. He was on two of them.
so it's funny in this whole trial, like when they talk about Alicia Owens or when they talk about Franklin in general, they keep bringing up that this has to do with in a time where there was this big satanic scare. Well, I mean, you have Michael Aquino, who is a Satanist and in the U.S.
practicing.
military, and he's practicing.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they be?
Well, all of these witnesses who have talked to their lawyers, they have claimed that they were a part of satanic ritual abuse. So also then going on, like I said, I was doing a bunch of deep diving today and listening to some of the survivors of MK Ultra, and they too said that they were subjected to satanic ritual abuse. So it was definitely happening. And part of it that I have learned about today is, SRA included, blood offerings and a lot of sexual abuse. The sacrificing of animals, the sacrificing of people. And a lot of it was to traumatize them, to form a trauma bond with somebody. So a lot of their, what they would call handlers, all these kids would have handlers. Handlers would expose them to all of this abuse, whether it was the sacrifices or it was to abuse to them personally. And then they would go through this experience, and then the handlers would comfort them and cuddle them and love on them so that they formed this bond, this trauma bond with them. It's the whole thing is just, it's sickening. I don't know. It's just, it makes my stomach curl to think about some of the stuff that they described and that happened to them.
And so back to Paul.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. And I know that's what makes this case hard, is because it does kind of go all over the place. But
and go on with your thought on him. But
I was going to say, so Paul mentions that he's involved with Michael Aquino at Offutt Air Force Base in a program called Monarch. And in this program, they basically subject him to abuse, which somehow, and I don't know how this all works, but it kind of creates the multiple personality. I suppose through some sort of, whether it be sexual abuse or whatever types of abuses they're exposed to. Over a long period of time, we're not talking that they go to, 2 meetings and now have split personalities. This is something that goes on for years, and it starts with him at a very, very young age.
Yeah, and they say that has to stop. It has to start typically at a young age, because the children's brain is forming, and they have to create that split, that disassociation, so that another personality forms. And the disassociation happens so that the personality that is dealing with the abuse can handle it, and then when they're not in that situation, you've got the normal personality that is functioning in the day-to-day realm and like nothing has happened. And so the personality that has dealt with the abuse is back in the corner again. And so then when they're exposed to it again, then the real personality disappears and the one that's abused pops up. And it just depends on how many times they're exposed to the abuse, what kind of situations it is. They're going to have different scenarios, create different scenarios in their mind. So like Paul, for example, he said he had almost 200 personalities.
Which is
crazy to think about. Yeah.
So Paul gets into this program. He's involved with the program for years. I think he begins in the 70s. By the 80s, he's been in the program for a while. One thing I always wondered, and I don't know if he answered it. I didn't get completely through the entire interview. I got through most of it. I would say at least 3/4. Is like, and I'm sure anybody listening to this is going to have the same question, but how did they get these kids involved? I assume they don't just show up to school one day and say, hey, can I talk to your mom? Can you be involved with this program I have?
Well, it's like we originally talked about. they're going to the after school programs. That's how they're indoctrinating them. They're going to Boys Town. They're stealing Johnny Gosh off the street.
Now I can imagine with some of these kids, and this is what I wonder, is this brought to the, because I'm assuming that the parents on some of these kids say, yeah, you can be a part of this program, but they probably are thinking of this program as, something like a Cub Scouts or something like any other after school program is what I would assume. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just guessing. I didn't know if he ever even mentioned it.
I don't remember originally because he said he was 3, but after the fact, when he got in high school, he just said they would pull me out of school for a couple of days, and it would just be like a couple of days of missed school. So I don't think it's like they're gone several days that it was so noticeable that somebody would really pay attention to it. But as far as getting the young kids involved, this Michael Aquino, and Paul mentions in his interview that Michael Aquino owned a daycare. So the daycare that he was affiliated with was the preschool in California called the McMartin.
Yeah, did you look that up?
And
just by
the
chance?
McMartin case,
Did I look what up?
Michael Aquino, like just even his Wikipedia.
That's what I'm reading.
So Michael Aquino was affiliated with this McMartin preschool in California that had 60 kids that were sexually abused and submitted to satanic ritual abuse. It was a huge trial with no convictions.
Yeah, I don't know if
It happened in the 80s, early 80s. So that's, again, that's how they're kind of getting access to young kids. Also, and Larry King, who was affiliated with a daycare. So
sure.
That's how, this is how they're getting access to kids.
And he, through this program, supposedly the program itself developed targets. And one of the targets was Alan Bear. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, because he was the financier. Yeah.
Yep. So, and it wasn't necessarily that.
So, yeah.
And he talked to get money, but it was to have access to people with money.
His connections, basically.
Yes.
They wanted his connections.
For the purposes of kind of like what we see today with Epstein. Mm-hmm. It's to put them in positions where they would be compromised. And then you could then use these people basically to do things and say, well, if you don't, then, all I got to do is let this picture go.
And the claim is, Paul's claim is that, this traveled wide and far. It was bi-coastal. They were shipping these kids to DC. They were being used as basically like a honeypot situation to make these government officials compromised because they would catch them in sexual acts, whatever it is, basically blackmailing them.
Almost identical, once again, to Epstein.
Yeah, it was the prequel of the Epstein.
Yeah, basically it's the same damn story.
Yeah.
Only it took place in the 80s.
Absolutely.
Instead of in the 2000s.
Yep. Yeah. So as Paul is describing this program, he said that the main Air Force or the main military bases he went to was Offutt in Omaha, this Presidio in California, and then one in Colorado. And he said the one in Colorado was a big one, and they spent a lot of time there. He said there was tunnels underneath. They would take them down to these tunnels, and they would perform the rituals on them. And they would also perform scenarios on these kids where they would tell them they were abducted by aliens. And he said, in actuality, there weren't really aliens. This was basically military claiming they were aliens and then controlling them this way and saying, there's, we have you, we're watching you. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. So they did a lot of things underground. And mostly it was because they wanted to control their mind so that they could be sent out to these targets and obtain information to come back to the government, basically. I mean, they were using them as little robot spies, basically.
And I could only assume it's probably through his association with Alan Bear, who was apparently, supposedly, allegedly, one of his targets, that he ends up also tied up with Lawrence King. And Lawrence King,
He said Larry King was involved because Larry King and Craig Spence already had a ring going. They already had a developed ring called the Call Boys. And so that's when Larry King was sending boys from Boys Town and these groups to Craig Spence in D.C. for these sex parties. Okay, they had already established. And so then Michael Aquino then targeted Larry King because they had already had this established ring going.
So the way I kind of picture this in my head is you have Michael Aquino, who with a government program similar to, my mind is going blank here. Maybe I should.
MK Ultra?
MK Ultra. So you have him doing that. You have Lawrence King, who has kind of a sex ring, a child trafficking ring within Omaha, who is also tied to Craig Spence, who has a similar thing going on in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And it's... Go ahead.
Well, okay, so back to those two connections, which I wondered this. So the story goes Larry King and Craig Spence were together somewhere overseas. Now, in reading about Michael Aquino was stationed in Vietnam. So it makes me wonder, Craig Spence and Larry King were somehow caught doing pedophilia stuff or caught with minors were they in Vietnam also?
Which one? Larry
Both
King?
of them. They were both together overseas and they got caught. And so basically they said, well, we won't press charges on you, but you're going to work for us. So it makes me wonder if Michael Aquino was already part of that because he was stationed in Vietnam.
So this is...
I'm getting all this information. I'm trying to put the pieces together.
And
so
hard.
I'm thinking that's kind of how they might have been affiliated.
So the one thing that I shouldn't say the one thing. There's lots of things that
it's just like a big old puzzle piece that we're trying to
it is.
fit together.
And what's funny is the only one who never really, really got in trouble would be Lawrence King. And so far as the Franklin scandal, because Michael Aquino did kind of get in trouble out in California with his whole daycare thing out there.
Yeah.
Craig Spence was getting into trouble in Washington, D.C. before he committed suicide. Mm-hmm. Both of them, they kind of knew that they were involved with sexually abusing kids. And so it's not hard for me to believe that Larry King, what was going on in Omaha, it's not a stretch to believe that was actually going on.
Right.
I don't know where I'm going to go with that, but,
Well,
but there's just so many pieces.
Yeah.
But and I know I've brought this up earlier, but when I first looked into the Franklin scandal, and I was looking at it as a conspiracy, and at first you're reading it, you're like, man, I don't know if I buy any of this. story. And I don't know, originally I didn't know, God, do I really buy what Alicia Owens is saying? Do I really believe what Paul's saying or what Troy Bonner is saying? But at the same time, when you start looking into these other people, whether it be like Craig Spence or Michael Aquino, who did get into trouble, and so far as the Franklin talks about it, and we're talking about before internet. So it's not like you could go to a computer and you could just Google Michael Aquino and say, oh yeah, we can throw his name in here. Mm-hmm. Or Craig Spence, we can throw his name in here. I'm looking at his Wikipedia right now, and this is what he got in trouble for. They didn't have any of that back then.
Right.
You had local newspapers. You didn't even have Fox News. You didn't have CNN. You didn't. The only thing you really had was if you happened to catch an episode on like 48 Hours or some program like that, mm-hmm. which I would find hard to believe that these kids are sitting up late at night watching 48 Hours with their parents so they can put together a story about Lawrence King in Omaha in this giant pedophilia ring.
Well, so one show that it was on was America's Most Wanted.
Okay.
So, and this goes back to 3 episodes ago when we talked about the Johnny Gosch abduction. And I said from the very beginning that I feel like these are connected. And you at the time did not feel that it was connected. But they did a story about the disappearance of Johnny Gosch, who was the paper boy from Des Moines, Iowa. And in that episode of America's Most Wanted, they interviewed Paul Bonacci and got Paul's story and how he was involved in helping kidnap Johnny Gosch and what happened to him. And he was taken to Colorado to this house. And the kids were all held down in some kind of basement area, cave, dungeon, whatever you want to call it. They were tied to the pipes down there or the beams, whatever you want to call it. And he had this story, and because of his multiple personality, a lot of people didn't believe his story. But America's Most Wanted came, and basically Paul described where they took Johnny, where they were storing these kids in Colorado. He described what the house looked like. He described when you get to the house, there's this big rock that looks like an elephant. He described everything to the T. So then when America's Most Wanted team went there to this house, which is now abandoned, it was exactly the way Paul described it. Paul actually goes with them, and when he gets to the doorstep, he just completely loses it and breaks down crying, and he's a mess. The video team goes inside, and they go down to this basement that he described, and it's just like he described it. And in fact, there's still remnants of ropes or chains or whatever down in the basement. And there's all these names that are etched into, names of kids that are etched into the beams or the walls. So I guess in my aspect, that all is connecting. In our research of Johnny Gosch, and I've looked in the Franklin case, like I said, 5-6 years ago already, but it wasn't till now that I looked into the Johnny Gosch one, and then I put all the pieces together that I truly feel like they're related. I think Paul is telling the truth because of everything that he's been through, and I don't know how he would know any of the information about Johnny Gosch if he wasn't actually involved.
I don't know.
I mean,
I really don't
and
know
like you
either.
said, this was in the 80s and 90s. How would he know this information? We don't have internet. So
I don't know.
I don't know how you come to a conclusion that it's not all related.
See, it's funny for me because I really like conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. And typically when people think of conspiracy theories, they think of like JFK. Of course, they're MK Ultra, mm-hmm. conspiracy theories like that. But like Franklin is probably not super popular.
No.
Craig Spence, not popular. Michael Aquino, not popular. But then again, so when I guess when I first started looking at this, I'm still, I'm naturally a skeptic. I'm skeptical of a lot of these things, but at the same time, I still, I keep reading and digging, and then you would throw stuff. And it's funny that the more you dig, and then you find these other individuals that are alleged to have been involved, and then you find out that, well, they got in trouble for pretty much the exact same shit, just in different places and at different times, maybe, and most of it actually after the fact, because this whole deal was going on in the mid to late 80s, as I think when the Franklin Credit Union went down and this investigation started. And it was after that, which one was it? Was it Peter Citron, who we talked about earlier? He ultimately gets busted with child pornography. You have...
Which he later committed suicide, didn't he?
I don't.
I had written down here all the mysterious... There's like 12 mysterious deaths that all were related to this story.
All right, let's go through some of those, because there's some witness relatives and witnesses themselves.
Yeah, so in fact, the first one I wrote down was Troy Bonner's brother. Troy was supposed to testify, and then he got scared and didn't show up. And he actually got ambushed in the courtroom by some FBI agents. And then he got scared and didn't testify. Well,
no, I think he actually, maybe it wasn't the original case, maybe it was an appeals case, but he did testify, but he later then said that his testimony was a lie.
He never actually got on the stand, though.
Are you sure about that?
Mm-hmm, because what's his bucket?
He got on the stand. No, he did get on the stand, but he pled the fifth.
Okay.
But so he basically didn't testify.
He didn't testify. Yeah. Well, so before that scenario, what had happened is his brother mysteriously dies.
Didn't he die in jail?
That was Alicia's brother.
Oh, that was Alicia's
So
brother.
Troy Bonner's brother was apparently just on a Air Force base playing Russian roulette with a gun, and oops. Supposedly, that's the story.
Smart.
And that was during her trial or right before her trial?
Yeah, well, it was right before he was supposed to testify, and then he's like, nope, I'm out.
Okay.
Alicia Owen's brother, same thing. She's in jail, and she learns that her brother... So they kind of tagged her brother. The cops were after him a lot. I think their family got harassed a lot, and he was put in jail for... speeding. I don't know, something minuscule they put him in jail for. And he mysteriously hangs himself in jail, supposedly. So, and Alicia feels like, he was murdered and that was a scare tactic so that she wouldn't tell the truth. Craig Spence committed suicide. Peter Citron committed suicide. William Colby is the CIA the head of the CIA, who was learning all this information, and he mysteriously ends up dead at his cabin.
Yeah, wasn't it?
He's in a canoe,
yeah,
barefoot, with his supper on the kitchen table. We have to mention Gary Caradori. Plane blows up in midair, kills him and his son. That was after he supposedly met with Rusty Nelson, who was the photographer and the videographer that was doing these snuff films and taking pictures of this sex acts going on. Who else?
Troy Bonner ends up dead.
Yeah, Troy Bonner, checks himself into a psych ward in Texas. I think it's Texas. And the next day, just mysteriously, the nurses go in and find him dead. Yeah, just weird.
And if you, back to the Epstein, you have Epstein kills himself. And I believe one of the witness victims, didn't one of those commit suicide as well? Or was there more than
Virginia. The main one who wrote the book, his main accuser. Virginia Giuffre, what's her name?
It's just eerie how these two cases are so similar. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason for me now to believe that it wasn't true.
I got to tell you that right before I came, and I think that's why I said I'm so sick to my stomach, is because right before I came, I was listening to this and I'm like, oh my God. So in learning about all these sex rings and pedophilia and, why is it so prevalent, or why? I mean, I know you don't think it's prevalent, but it's prevalent. It's just hidden. And why is it happening? Are all these people just have this craving to have sex with kids? And actually I learned that no, it's not. That's not it.
No, I think they're used. They're put in situations where kids are now present, and maybe in not even that the people would be engaged with a sexual act with a kid, but it's in an atmosphere where it appears that is exactly what's going on. And some of them might be doing it. But I think it's all for blackmail.
Sure. But also, I learned that the reason sodomy is involved, and of course that's anal penetration, is that certain people believe, and there's a mysterious group out there that is alleged called the Illuminati, that sexual penetration through the rectum, anus, is a direct link to the spine, which then opens up the pineal gland of the child. And once the pineal gland is accessed in the child, it opens the third eye, which then the abuser then causes them to illuminate.
Huh? Is this like a satanic thing?
Satanic / Illuminati power thing. Supposedly, this is the teaching that, that's why kids are used. That's why this is happening. Is that supposedly it's about power. It's about some kind of energy transfer. I'm like, oh my God.
See, I would think that it'd have more to do with putting powerful people that you want to control in a position where they can be easily blackmailed, such as, you put them in a room full of.
I think to some extent, but there's power for people that are in charge and doing this. And why are they don't get. Joe Schmo isn't going to come off the street and then just all of a sudden blackmail you. And I mean, they have to gain their power somehow. Otherwise, somebody's going to say, who the hell are you? Get out of here.
Well, maybe there could be an element of that. I do think that there's actually some people out there. I think there's an
element of that. And I'm going to sound crazy, but there is things with your pineal gland. There is.
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to try that, but.
Well, it has nothing to do with your genitals. It's in your brain.
Oh.
It's in your brain. Your pineal gland is in your brain.
Well, I think most women would agree that the penis of a man is somehow connected to his brain.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you do any type of meditation, you've learned about it, you know about it.
I don't know about it.
Yeah. So,
but
that's why you keep an open mind, because once you really learn about it and you think, okay, this could be what's happening and why they're doing it.
I think maybe I'm not going to discount it.
Well,
But I'm going to say that I think that there's also people who are just sick and they like to have young people, not always like little kids, but there are people obviously that are into little kids, which is absolutely disgusting. And then also there's the whole blackmail. So you have what you talked about, people who are just sick, and then people who want to blackmail.
yeah. And not, like I said, what I talked about is more of the ritual abuse and why. But, you know, it makes you wonder because we've all heard the word Illuminati. We've all heard rumors of who's involved in Illuminati. You know,
I've never heard the anal part so
well,
far as illumination,
that's
but I just never heard it
that's
because,
the
to be honest,
reasoning
I've
behind
never.
it. This interview I was listening to is like this is why sodomy is involved with kids.
So yeah. Do we have any more on the Franklin?
I don't know. And here it goes back to did you watch the Diddy documentary?
Which one?
50 Cents?
Yes.
50 Cent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that wasn't in the documentary, was it? So Kim Porter wrote a book. Kim Porter is Diddy's ex-wife.
Okay.
Okay. She ultimately died of pneumonia. But she wrote a book. And in her book, she talked about Diddy practicing in these satanic rituals and the transfer of energy and how when she became pregnant with their first child, I mean, there's a thing that involves energy transfer, not only with kids, sex with kids, but sex with pregnant women. So in her book, she writes that in her pregnancy, she was passed around because of the energy transfer, because she has more energy, more life source in her.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just listening.
Saying, you know, so the whole thing with anyway, I'm connecting the dots again, but
it's all gross.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it makes me sick to my stomach. But yeah, it's just, I sound crazy. I know I do, but.
Well, I mean, really, is it any more crazy than what's going on in the pedo rings or what's going on with MK Ultra or, I mean, really anything else that goes on? There's all kinds of crazy going on.
Well, and you can look up, there's declassified files of MK Ultra, and I mean, it's a thing.
Well, I know it's a thing.
You know,
and that's what I was getting at earlier when you look into a conspiracy and you think, this has got to be all bullshit. Well, maybe I'm not saying that everything that everybody says so far as all the witnesses is 100% accurate. And I have no doubt that maybe some of it isn't 100% true. But I think when it comes down to the important parts of it, such as the fact that there probably actually was a pedophile ring, that these kids were actually abused, that they were transported, whether it be from Omaha to Washington, D.C., or from Omaha to California or to Colorado or to Kansas City or Texas or wherever they may have been taken to, that part of it is probably true. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that they embellish some of the stories? Sure. But really, even if you take the embellishment out, it's still gross and illegal and wrong and everything else. It's all those things. It's bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then, I was listening to some of these interviews too, and they're like, oh, this one gal was talking, she's from Australia. They're like, yeah, Australia is really known for big time pedophilia rings. I'm like, are you really?
Well, I think there's probably more of that going around than we realize. And I know I mentioned it before, but to me, knowing what people know now I can't believe that there's not, more task force. And I know there's some, so I'm not saying that there's none, but it's not like a drug task force. I mean, those are all over the damn place. Almost every agency's either has a drug task force or has a member of their department that's part of a drug task force. But it doesn't seem to be the same when it comes to trafficking. And I don't know why that is the case. We all know it exists.
Do you suppose that for that same reason, that in some way, shape, or form, somebody in authority is compromised?
I don't
whether
think so.
they meant to be or not.
Nope.
I mean,
I don't. And I don't because I was a member of a department where it never came up. And I think the reason, this is just based on my own experience in law enforcement, the reason it's not is I still think that in the back of a person's mind, they just hate to think that it's going on. It's like
out of sight, out of mind. I don't really want to.
It's not that, I mean, they know it is, but I mean, look at this case. Look how difficult it is to follow. And you'll start,
it's daunting.
You try and read about just Lawrence King. Well, you can't just read about Lawrence King because it's going to take you to Craig Spence, or it's going to take you to Michael Aquino, or it's going to take you in 10 other places. And so you find yourself, when they talk about going down a rabbit hole, I mean, this thing splits off and you don't know what direction. Next thing you know, you're clear over in left field. You're not even talking about Lawrence King anymore.
Right. And I think that's exactly what we did. Like, we're like jumping from this one to this one to this one to this one. And well, how do you avoid it?
And maybe the other thing is with drugs, like with the drug task force, you're always going to have people, whether it be in your small community or going up and down the highway, that you're going to find marijuana or methamphetamine or cocaine or, whatever
the same
drug.
players.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's easier.
Yeah.
This isn't easy. The other thing is, I don't think that, like you look at this case, it's not necessarily localized. So it's not like you have necessarily a pedophile ring that's just in your community. It's probably tied to multiple locations.
Yeah.
And if you're a law enforcement agency, typically that you do have somebody that's in a drug task force, so they'll work in multiple jurisdictions. But this is it's different. It's way more complicated. And if you look at the number of people that are actually convicted of these types of crimes, it doesn't happen often. And the other thing is, if you read newspapers and you look at articles where people are busted for child sexual assault and you look at how much time they serve in jail or prison, and it's almost nothing. It's like it's not even being taken serious in court. So I know that we've had people that we've had convicted and we've transported to prison, and you look at their prison sentence and it's 5, 6, or 7 years, and you're like, what? After what they did? That's way, if somebody gets caught with, an 8-ball or something, they might get 10 years in prison because, they had an 8-ball. Oh, and they had a firearm. And they take it really serious, and it's pretty easy for a court to say, well, yeah, you had drugs, you may have been transporting drugs, and you have a firearm, so it's compounded. So now you're going to get, minimum 10 years in prison. And really, I don't know of how many cases I know of where somebody's convicted of child sexual assault or trafficking or whatever, and they get more than, 7 years.
Well, here's my thought. You suppose it has something to do with the fact that people can proclaim that it's my religion. Because there's such a thing called MAMBLA. Okay. Marissa, will you look that up? Man Boy Love Association.
What?
Do I want that on my computer?
Well, it's a thing.
Why?
It's an association where
I think some of it is
man boy love, and then
the first thing that comes up for me is South Park.
Well, and then you have the situation where the polygamists, Warren Jeffs, and
Warren Jeffrey,
whoever it is, Well, it's my religion to have multiple wives. Then there's another cult that I can't remember what the name of the cult was that said it was man-child love, that it was fine to have relations with children. I think maybe it's an area that is taboo in a way. There's not a cut black and white. Yes, we all morally know that we shouldn't sexually abuse children. But when you have people who are trying to make things the norm, even having transvestites come and read children's books to your kindergartners, it's that kind of thing. It's that kind of mentality now. I feel like that makes it really
I don't
gray.
know, because I think it's just been this way. I don't want to say forever, but
I know, but so has those religions too. So has the polygamy. So has the Mambla. So, I mean, that's been around forever too, because that was in the 70s and 80s.
But I know one thing that I experienced in the criminal justice system was you would go to court, and for whatever reason, and maybe this doesn't happen everywhere, but it certainly happened in the courts that I was in, that for whatever reason, the judge seems
sympathetic what?
Well, yeah, they just think that their job is to help rehabilitate this person, and I don't believe that. I think that you have a criminal justice system because it's crime and it's punishment.
Yeah, but it's so weird though, isn't it? Though that they I don't know. There's just this weird mindset.
It's like we cave to criminals or something. You look at jail standards anymore.
What the hell is that?
So jail standards, you have to, allow so much time for exercise, or, there's all these standards. You can't just put them in a shitty cell with shitty food with no TV or, no rec equipment. And people are like, they're so worried about, a person's rights or help. We can help them educate themselves. That's never fucking worked. So I don't know. That's kind of what I think. I don't even know if that made sense.
I said it wrong.
What'd you say wrong?
It's NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Yeah, the first thing that comes up is an episode to South Park where it says Cartman joins NAMBLA.
According to Wikipedia, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, NAMBLA, is a pedophilia and pedestry advocacy organization in the United States. It works to abolish age of consent laws, criminalizing adults' sexual involvement with minors, and campaigns for the release of men who have been jailed for sexual contacts with minors that did not involve what considers coercion.
With a minor.
The group no longer holds regular national meetings, and as of 1990s, to avoid local political infiltration, the organization discouraged the formation of local chapters. In 1995, an undercover detective discovered there were 1,100 people in the organization rolls. Yeah. It's that kind of crap.
I think there's just I don't know. I guess I'm not a judge. I don't know what the hell goes through their mind. I'm also not a legislator, so I don't write the laws. I don't write the punishments. But I just could never figure out why crimes against kids were never, I don't want to say taken serious, but it seemed like the punishments definitely did not fit the crime. Not even close.
Yeah.
Because some of these people go into prison for 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I'm saying that the people that commit crimes with kids definitely freaking deserve it. And they should probably be there longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and don't get me wrong. The whole reason I found out about this is because it was mentioned in the book, because Larry King was a part of it, and I believe so was Alan Baer, was a part of this NAMBLA group.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And one of them, I think Larry King was actually like the head of one of the chapters in the Omaha area.
Who was?
Larry King.
Larry King.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's just it's a sick world.
It is
Fortunately.
a sick world.
But I hope our local Nebraskans listen to these episodes and, you know, are as mesmerized as I was finding out all about this stuff. It was crazy. I didn't.
Well, in a
Nebraska.
case like
You
this,
think of Nebraska and you think nothing happens in Nebraska, but
Well, I know
turns
this-
out.
I know this is different than some of the things we talked about in the past so far as, a lot of those were kind of like normal
Yeah.
criminal cases. And I realize that this one probably follows a line of, you know, some conspiracies and some stuff that just sounds absolutely freaking insane. But really it's not. It sounds insane because it's so gross that a normal person like you or me can't comprehend what it would be like for us to be involved in something like that. And I think that
Exactly.
that's a person's problem is they think from their own perspective, like, I don't understand how somebody could do that. Well, it doesn't change the fact that it happens. I mean, I can't imagine myself punching a woman in the face, but I know damn well that there's men out there that do it.
Yeah, it's true. It's our mindset, and you know we're the good life, and that kind of stuff doesn't happen here, and we're kind of almost oblivious to anything like that, or any, like, at least I'm going to speak for myself. But you know, you grow up in a rural farming community, and you know, everybody's involved. Everybody goes to church, and everybody's a big community, and you don't think this kind of thing happens. It's just, I don't know.
I think you just hope to think it doesn't. It's not something you see.
Well, it's,
You know, that's another thing. You don't see kids being abused, you know, on the street, you know, out in the open and in public. But anybody that's been outside of their house and have gone to Walmart or have been getting gas have been there when they're at the register when somebody walks up and clearly they're high out of their mind and they're tweaking out. So they see
Yeah.
it. So they know it's around because they see it. They might not be involved with it, but it's there in front of their face.
yeah.
And this is one of those things that definitely happens behind closed doors. It's not something you see.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for you to comprehend that somebody would even do such a thing because, you know, where I don't, visual, I don't know, you typically believe what you see. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
But-
true. Yeah.
And it's absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I just, if you are skeptical, just and you feel like you're up for it, do some digging, do some research, look into it, and your eyes will be opened.
well, or buy one of the books.
Yeah.
Or buy both of the books. Mm-hmm. So
I will say, the first one by John Decamp, it was tough. I felt it was tough to get through. The second one by Nick Bryant, you know, that one obviously I listened on an audiobook. So again, that one it was hard just because there are so many characters. It was so convoluted with so many involvements with everything that it was hard to follow also. But I feel like if I would listen to it again, then I would know a lot more what was going on. But
And so those books, you can buy them online. The one by John Decamp is the Franklin cover-up.
and he's a Nebraska senator, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he wrote that
was.
book. Was,
And
yeah.
then Nick Bryant authored a book called The Franklin Scandal. So anyways, those are the two books if anybody was interested and they want to do their own reading, their own research. But
And of course, you know, YouTube is full of, you know, interviews with the victims, with Alicia Owen, Paul Benashi, Gary Caradori's wife. There's all kinds. Nick Bryant does a lot of interviews with all of those people. So you can hear it come from their mouth. And come to your own conclusion, I guess.
that's all you can ask.
You know?
So, Marissa, where are we sitting for time?
1 hour and 11 minutes.
1 hour and 11 minutes. Well, should we close this one off?
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
We're done with the Franklin case.
Done.
The Franklin scandal.
I guess maybe next time we can talk about
Some current events.
So we have the kind of crime related where you talk about Venezuela.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, eventually I kind of want to talk about Charlie Kirk again. So
Yeah.
that's still kind of
That's a hot topic right
that's
now.
a topic. So anyways, we'll catch you next time.
Yep. Adios.
Bye.
Don't talk back, let you wanna